For the exercise of creating an inclined cabinet, we will create a new preset. I open the ElementsCAD preset and switch to the M1:10 plane here. Then I save it as inclined cabinet right away. I now have a base with dimensions of a rectangle with 2000 mm by 1500 mm. I can position it in the center here on the drawing and remove the sheet. Now I simply switch to the architecture tool group, enter a wall thickness of 150, and then draw the walls accordingly. I click on this corner and confirm it with a double click. Now I switch to the front view and enter a wall height of 1000 here. I draw a guideline at 23 degrees. I can also offset it here. And then adjust the height accordingly. To do this, I double-click and enter the editing mode. Now I can place the point here. Sometimes there is no snapping point here, but if I zoom in, I can work in the 100th range here. But before that, let's also lower this. And we can define this wall accordingly. Now, looking from the right front top. For the ceiling area, we could actually use this line to create it. That would be one option if I simply extrude it by 1500, then in the floor plan view. I just need to move this surface to the corner, and I already have the final result. The second option would be to create another rectangle and then create a roof surface in the ElementsCAD menu under Architecture. Here, the eaves height is 1000 mm, the roof slope is 23 degrees, and the roof thickness is set to 0 mm, and I'll make a small one here, and then we have the roof edge, and we also have the thickness here. And now set the value to 0 mm, and in the end, we have the same result, only here we are dealing with a hybrid object, meaning it is an object that also has a 2D plane in the floor plan view, whereas an extruded body only gets a color in the surface and edges or solid model representation. In any case, we can now insert a cabinet. I click on the back corner. I confirm with OK, and can already enter a distance of 50 mm for the front panel and -20 for the setback in the Y direction. The depth of the cabinet in the body is 500 mm. We can also set the width here, and here we have a width of 1500 mm for the external dimensions of the cabinet. I switch to the front view and take a look at the intermediate result. Of course, we don't need a segment for the middle segments here. We define a base here. Create a front panel with a miter joint. And a rear panel with a rear blunt, for example, with a height of 50. Then we can define a bevel on the left over the entire length of 1500 millimeters, and now we can add another point here. We can now remove the guideline and adjust it here in detail. Now we just need to measure the distance upward, and we can assign a front panel to the cabinet in the ElementsCAD menu. We want to consider the base height, and here we can assign a miter on the front and a butt joint on the back. We can also specify the thickness of the cabinet. We have a thickness of 554 here, so I assign this distance plus 45 to this distance. And thus have the correct depth. We can now remove the guideline and, finally, in the ElementsCAD menu, assign a base to the cabinet. We want to consider the base height, and here we can create a miter on top or make the upright panels continuous. The base height is 50, and we can also adjust it here. Now we can separate the cabinet from the base to edit this object specifically in the front view or first in two-dimensional plans. We have measure distance to go to draw F-cons in the representation mode. And now we have the corresponding front panel adjusted. We could click on front panel again. A new front panel will be created, and now, it should be a double-sided panel. We don't need one on the left, we want to have a distance of 50 millimeters in the front and 20 millimeters in the back. Then we can adjust it here in detail if necessary. We should measure the distance here to the front panel and add 45 millimeters to it, and that's the correct result. We can now measure the height here as well and add a value of 62 millimeters. We have a distance of 99 millimeters to the front panel. I can reposition this again, take this front panel, of course, and now we have the correct depth. We can also measure the height here and add 62 to it. We can still make some fine-tuning adjustments here and set the segmentation to create 3 doors, for example, and make further adjustments. but these are already explained in other chapters.